You've both written books about gritty political themes. Why do you think it's important to write about these topics?
After you.
Since 2014, I was a youth worker, and one of the things I was doing was working with young people to kind of amplify their voices and get them to tell the stories that they wanted to tell. And one of the things that I learned was that loads of young people feel really, really unhappy with how the country is being run and what's happening where they live, and I just wanted to write a book that kind of talked about some of the issues that they really cared about, like housing and the police and gentrification and community, and present it in a thriller, so it'd be fun to read rather than just like a boring dry political book with political big heavy themes.
Shall I answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. Nikesh, I work in schools 2 days a week. And there I'm just teaching like academic literature, right? And I see the whole kind of like range of subjects that the kids take, and they're great subjects. They have to take them like, okay, to the national curriculum if there is one, whatever. But they're not really being prepared for what I think life is holding for them. They have very mixed ideas, and mixed understandings and mixed messages from their community, and I don't want to stand in front of them and kind of go, you guys need to think about the society you're going into because X, Y, and Z is happening out there, because that's so pompous and didactic and horrible. But I was trying to think of ways that I could introduce those topics, and because I love writing, then I like to bring in some kind of political or social, appropriate threads to put to weave the plot of the book around, so that it's at one level. It's a thriller, and at another level, it's a kind of series of quite radical statements about the society that we live in, and the things that kids can expect and maybe may need to change.
What is the freedom you're most grateful for in your life?
I could answer that as a woman. I think. I'm very appreciative of the fact that I can be a single person, that I can raise my kids even if my relationships with my partners don't work out, and I can drive in my car anywhere, and I can have the freedom to be myself in most parts of the world, and that's one freedom that I value a lot.
I really value free movement.
What do you think is the biggest challenge facing young people in society today, and what do you think we should do about it?
From the work that I've been doing, one of the things that I've noticed that young people are really worried about is housing, and whether it's not about owning property, it's about can they afford rent, can they afford like a basic standard of living while doing a job that they want to do, and it feels like untenable to even consider a career in the arts or a career in certain industries that might leave the country once Brexit happens because of this sort of precarious nature of where we are. So I think a lot of young people want to know that they can afford to live, and that's kind of scary.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think the biggest challenge, but I think there are two big challenges. One of them is food and the way in which our environment is being desiccated, and the way in which rubbish food, fake food, plastic food is being served up to kids. And I think it's really worrying that children nowadays, the next generation, are not outliving their parents. They're dying before their parents. And even my generation, we're not expected to live as long as our parents. That's worrying. And I'd like to see a huge campaign for kids about much more clean eating. And I think the second thing is capitalism. And I think capitalism can only exist when there are losers. And unless you've got some kind of family backup or you have an extraordinary break, you're going to be ground down by the capitalist system. And I would like to see kids just saying, no, we're not having it anymore. We want equal choice, we want an equal playing field, and we don't want to be making masses of money for massive industries that really churn us out, and then at the end of the day, feed us fake foods, and then we can die in a depleted National Health Service.
What's your advice on getting started about writing topics that you're passionate about?
To write a book, my advice is just do it. Don't get hung up by, it has to be done this way, it has to be done that way. Read a lot, and you have a story, and your stories are just as important as anybody else's story. The crafting can come afterwards. And my advice is don't be put off. I know when I started, everyone said, oh, you'll never get a book published. Oh, it's really hard to get into publishing. Nobody breaks through to publishing. Well, that's not my experience. My experience was it was really easy. But there's a lot of people out there who just don't want you to do what you want to do.
I'd say when writing a book about an issue that you really, really care about, the thing that you need to remember is that the characters are the most important part of the story. So make your characters really, really brilliant, dynamic characters that we all fall in love with and we really, really root for, and use them to tell the story rather than put your politics into their mouths.